Recorded the cloud. Great. All right. Well, thank you so much. Is it recording? I didn't hear the little, oh, it is. Great. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our March 12th Lunch and Learn. My name is Twyla. I'm the Director of Outreach, and here on the team, we have several others who are going to be giving updates. If you would like to go ahead and introduce yourself, Sophie, and then Cody, and then Jen, and then we can get started.
Thank you, Twyla. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so pleased you're here. My name is Sophie Vogel. I'm the CASFA coordinator, and I look forward to talking to you about CASFA. Go ahead, Cody.
Yes, thanks, Sophie. My name is Cody Eden. I am the FAFSA coordinator for the Colorado Department of Higher Education. Very excited to provide some FAFSA updates and financial aid completion tool updates as well. Go ahead, Jim.
Thanks, Cody. Looking forward to that. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today on your lunch hour. I'm Jennifer Lucero, the Outreach Navigator. I'll give you some event updates later on.
Great. With that, Cody, you are first on our agenda for FAFSA updates.
All right. Thank you very much. I've got an assist with Jennifer with my slides today. Thank you so much for helping me with that. Today, when the slides get there, I am going to talk about some updates around FAFSA, just two quick ones. One you may have heard of and one you probably just heard of yesterday. So as we know, this is a very, very much a changing landscape in education right now amidst the administration change. And so this first slide, of course, has to do with yesterday's big news. The full press release is at the bottom there, of course, but we pulled some highlights. This has been hinted that change was coming for the Department of Education, and this is the first, real sign that, hey, this is the current change. So they have, as of yesterday, announced a reduction in force. This will impact about half of the department, largely starting on the 21st of March. Within the article, there is a great quote that we love to see, of course. The Department of Education will continue to deliver on all statutory programs that fall under the agency's purview, including formula funding, student loans, Pell Grants, funding for special needs students, and competitive grant making. Now, they really don't expand a whole lot on that, but obviously good signs to see some of those programs mentioned that will impact our families and students. So certainly encouraging folks to stay apprised of updates as they come, and we'll do the same. And the second quick FAFSA update, we did report a little bit on this last month, and that update changing the selections to male and female only. Reiterate and note that this is a question for research purposes only. There really is no wrong answer for students filling out the form right now, whether they only have those male-female options or they have submitted it prior. Because there's no identity validation or SAI impact or anything that's shared in the ICER that goes to IHEs specific to that male, female, or this question 11 in general. So encourage students to answer to the best of their ability at this point. And if form updates are needed, when they go back into the form, they'll be prompted to update that question 11 as well. I think that's all for some quick FAFSA updates. I know we've got some exciting information around CASFA up next.
Okay, I guess that's me. So I'm going to share my screen. And I want to talk to you today about a CASFA expansion and data security, CASFA data security. And I'm Sophie Vogel, again, the CASFA coordinator. So just so you all know, we are making some decisions based on some of our the organizations that we turn to for guidance. So as the National College Attainment Network says, we believe mixed status families, and mixed status means mixed immigration status, So mixed immigration status families should make a considered decision about whether to submit identifying information to the federal government in an FSA ID or FAFSA. This guidance may be particularly relevant to mixed status families who would be participating in the federal aid application process for the first time. So based on a number of things, CDHE has decided to expand the CASFA. So the CASFA expansion means that CASFA eligibility is expanded to include students from mixed immigration status families. So the CASFA is for students who are not eligible for federal student aid, undocumented students, or students from mixed immigration status families who don't feel it is safe to share their parents' personal information with the federal government. And students who complete a CASFA are applying for state and institutional aid only, and they are not applying for federal student aid. They're not eligible for a federal Pell Grant. A little more information. I know there's a ton of language on this slide. Forgive me, I was just finishing it. So I have an update about CASFA data security from March 5th. So it's available here at on CDHE's page. You can Google CASFA and then navigate to the CASFA page, and there's a button towards the top that says CASFA data security. We want to make sure all students who are interested in the CASFA are aware of the fact that CASFA data is only used for, let's see, what does it say? Information provided through the CASFA is used solely to determine eligibility for financial aid offered by the state and colleges in Colorado. Information provided through the CASFA is not shared with the federal government, and it is not used for immigration enforcement. And we will work to the full extent of the law to protect all students and their families who share their information through the CASFA. So hopefully this is beneficial information that you can share with your students who are they and their families are experiencing higher levels of stress and hopefully not, but possibly trauma related to current changes in the educational landscape. And so if you are able to provide information to those students and say CASFA eligibility has been expanded, and here's the expanded CASFA eligibility, and here's information about CASFA data security, then we hope that students and families can make informed decisions on their own with that information, with those tools. A few other things I want to point out is the President's Alliance on Higher Education and Immigration has a great FAFSA messaging template to facilitate difficult conversations. So there's the QR code. So they have wonderful information, but I just want to point out, if you're working with a student who is eligible for federal student aid, just like Cody said, Pell Grants are not going away, so you can reassure the student that they are still eligible, and then you can listen to and address their security concerns, respect their privacy, and avoid asking directly about immigration status, answer questions and consult experts when appropriate, and then talk through the pros and cons of alternative aid applications, such as the CASFA. So again, if a student decided they wanted to submit a CASFA, they could submit a CASFA and they could be eligible for state and/or institutional aid, and they would not be eligible for federal aid. Let me see. A few frequently asked questions. So the answer to this question is yes. So it's not a question, it's a statement. I'll reword that. So for clarity, Colorado students from mixed status families who demonstrate financial need via their CASFA can be awarded the Colorado Student Grant. And then the answer to the below questions is no. So can I delete or undo a FAFSA? No. I already completed a FAFSA. Should I do a CASFA? No. Can I get more money if I do both? No. As many of you potentially know, students should only do one financial aid application. Here is my contact information. I look forward to supporting you with any questions and comments. For clarification, team, are we doing questions right now?
Sure, we can do questions, sure.
Okay. Great. Well, you all can put your questions in the chat if you have any, or you can come off mic and talk about them. And I will do my best. And of course, it's totally fine if you don't have pressing questions that you want to talk about right now, and you can bring them up at the end of this Lunch and Learn or later, whatever works.
Hi, Sophie.
Hi, Dean.
I'm wondering, will CDHE provide guidance on how we determine whether or not a family is a mixed status before awarding CSG?
I love that question, and I will get back to you about it. Thank you for asking.
No problem.
That's terrific. And then you can ask more questions if you want, Dean, but also Janelle has a question in the chat. Twyla, or does somebody mind reading it while I write down Dean's question?
Sure. Janelle is asking, what if a student completed the FAFSA but did not provide any parent information, so their FAFSA is in a reject status? Could the student still choose to complete the FAFSA? Or did you mean the CASFA?
I did, yes. Thanks, Twyla.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a terrific question, Janelle. Do you have any what would you think is my first question. So if it's in reject status, does that mean you didn't get an ICER?
No, it means we did receive an ICER, but the student, maybe because the parents weren't comfortable providing their information, the student went ahead and submitted their part. The school received the information, but it can't be processed because it's incomplete.
I think maybe we should continue that dialogue. I think what we want to do is what's in the best interest of the student. So I would like to continue to talk to you about whether the answer to that second question could be a yes. Does that make sense, Janelle?
Yes, it does.
Okay,
So.
great. Thank you.
There's another question. Would you like me to read it, Sophie? Okay, from David Lucci at Front Range. My current understanding to be eligible for the Colorado Student Grant as a CASFA flyer, you also need to be designated as an asset residency status. Otherwise, how do we further determine eligibility in coordination with residency status for the state aid programs?
Terrific. Thank you so much, David. Great question. So yes, that is all correct. So if a student completes a CASFA, but let's say they're a U.S. citizen, so for their application to Front Range Community College, their tuition classification is resident student or Colorado resident or something like that, then I understand that the tuition classification wouldn't automatically be matched with your CASFA filter. So I think that this will be manual in terms of the effort needed to say like, oh, this is a CASFA application from a Colorado resident tuition classification student. And then you'll have to determine if they, demonstrate sufficient financial need. And if they do, then you could potentially award them aid. Does that sound like it answers your question?
Partially.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of how to further phrase this, I guess, but previous years leading up to now, we could only give, in particular, the CSG, but other state aid program funds to those CASFA filers who also had that asset residency designation. And I guess what I'm further trying to clarify is, will that still be a requirement, or is this abrupt news sweeping away that asset designation requirement?
Well, could it change it from asset designation to any designation that meant Colorado resident? Because you still can't award Colorado state aid to a CASFA student who doesn't meet Colorado asset eligibility, or or, or who isn't a Colorado resident. Could that work?
It, I mean, yes, in theory, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, the potential expansion of this is just big.
Okay.
For
Well,
lack of a better phrase, but
I
my
appreciate.
mind's swimming a little bit on it right now. So yeah, I might send you something more official as a follow-up question or guidance on it here shortly.
I appreciate that. I don't think timing was ideal for those of you who are logging on from financial aid offices. So I just I recognize that I would like to provide you information in a way that is better for you all. So I'll work on that in the future. And I'm sorry, David, if we haven't figured this out. Yes. So yeah, let's continue to discuss.
Right.
Yeah, I think
Mhm.
something that could be real helpful. Sorry if I cut anybody off, just to jump in again, but further information to be presented at the CDHE Financial Aid Administrators Call the last Friday of the month in March, I think could be very, very helpful. So
Great insight, David.
thanks.
That sounds great.
We have a next question. Can students who are McKinney-Vento apply for CASFA?
Yes. Great question. CASFA is an application based on immigration status, or not based on. CASFA is a state aid application, and immigration status is relevant to CASFA. McKinney-Vento isn't determined by immigration status. A few other pieces about that is that a student who is going to do the Empower Ed program, which covers up to full cost of attendance for McKinney-Vento students and other eligibility. They can use CASFA to determine their eligibility for Empower Ed. So basically, the question is yes, but maybe switched. And Celine, feel free to reach out if you have additional questions, or let me know.
Okay. And there was a follow-up question to that effect. Could students in the situation be eligible for both Empower Ed and Foster Ed funding from the state?
Well, Janelle, these are, of course, questions for our post-secondary options navigators, specifically because they know more about this. But since those are last dollar financial aid programs, I think, Twyla, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that if a student was eligible for both Empower Ed and Foster Ed, since they're both, oh, Shannon's here.
Shannon.
Sorry.
There she is.
Hi,
Hey,
I was enjoying you
Shannon.
listening to explain that. Yes, so to answer the question, if students are eligible for both Empower Ed and Foster Ed, we encourage students to utilize Empower Ed funding first, because this program is limited in age. Primarily age is really the biggest restraint for that. Foster Ed does not have the same age restriction that Empower Ed does. And Empower Ed is also limited to their first degree, undergraduate degree specifically. A foster ed can be used for graduate school as well. So due to the age and degree limit, Empower Ed first, Foster Ed second if they plan to continue their education.
Thanks, Shannon. All right. I think that's all that are in the chat. Any other questions? And we can move on to our next part. Great. All right, Cody, if you want to take over. And
Hey.
wait, we'll have some more Q&A at the end, Dallas, and we'll answer that question. Cody, go ahead and go for it.
Awesome. Thank you, Twyla. Great discussion. I will help us transition a little bit back into the FAFSA side and CASFA side. You will learn because we're talking about the financial aid completion tool. I mentioned that it is now including both, and you'll learn more about that. Yep, there we go. And you will also start to see another acronym flying around, FACT. Okay, so Financial Aid Completion Tool. So go ahead, Jed. The what and where, some folks may be familiar with what this is. It was formerly called the FAFSA completion tool or completion portal. So if you've heard that or you've been a part of that, this is the same thing. We are obviously rebranding a little bit with the financial aid completion tool name, but it can still be found at the link here that is still FAFSA specific. So that is still where the portal lives. The picture that you see is an example of my login. So some of those things at the top will look a little bit different for you and your login. And if you do not currently have an accessible login, then you will see a little bit less even. But even without a login, you can get on here and see the summaries and get some data around FAFSA specific to different areas in our state. But ultimately, this portal is used when you have a full account to track your student level data. That allows you to literally go in and confirm, did this student submit like they said they did? Is it up for, are they selected for verification? Different factors like that. So you can really help them proceed beyond that submission. I do want to note that the page you're seeing looks a little bit different than what you will see in the revamped portal. We are under construction right now, but the current portal still functions with the data that we have available. We're going to talk a little bit more about those changes under construction on this next slide. And it's an exciting slide. I see Sophie and I duplicated this picture because it's our favorite. What we should be expecting as we revamp the platform is big change, including CASFA data. So that's going to be a huge help in identifying a financial aid application overall, whether that's FAFSA or CASFA. We'll be able to confirm if the student has submitted. And important to note, it will not delineate between CASFA and FAFSA on the portal. Obviously, to protect student data and personal information, it will just have the broad category of financial aid application, whether it's complete or not, whether it's FAFSA or CASFA. I mentioned the link is still FAFSA specific, so of course we're working on a new URL in that regard. For the time being and until you see an update, that link will stay active as the current portal. And again, the name change involving the CASFA inclusion. Otherwise, there are just some slight changes on the look and feel. Hopefully it's a little better for you all as you use it, but no real big changes in functionality or user capabilities. There is a two-factor authentication login, so have fun with that. I have fun with it myself. Nobody's immune. And then we also want to note data share agreements are still required, and I'll talk a little bit more about that moving forward. If you had access to this in the past, try to log back in. You might be surprised that your access is no longer there or something has changed. If that's the case, please let me know, and we will make sure to edit and update that for you. All right, and transitioning into the why of the FAFSA portal, it is because it's important. We all know FAFSA really is a strong indicator of post-secondary success and matriculation. So we also have some work to do, as you can see. As of the end of February, these stats are a little concerning. Of course, we're ranked currently 40th in the nation and about 6 percentage points behind with our 12th grade class FAFSA completion at the moment. If you've never used the NCAN FAFSA tracker, it is great. What it doesn't do is give you student level data, which our portal does. So hopefully with a combination of both, you can really track some great FAFSA data and support your students and families. And then we also have a stat still in there that FAFSA is a strong indicator. Seniors who complete the FAFSA are 84% more likely to immediately enroll in post-secondary education following high school. For our students in lower SES quintiles, that is even a higher increase at 127%. So geek out on some data for sure. Join me. And the next slide, we will talk about how you get onto the state portal. That QR code is going to be today. Even our financial aid office folks in the room love even your input, because there's a question on the form that asks, like, what else do you want to see on this platform? You know, I'm thinking resources available to students and families, maybe IHE specific pages. So any and all input is certainly welcome. For the high school counselors in the room or high school educators, please use this to advocate for access to this portal. I will check your district status and kind of loop you in with the appropriate people following this form to make sure we can get you in and access. We'll talk a little bit more about the DSA process here. They are, a lot of them, still in progress as we revamp the platform, so certainly appreciate your patience. There's several levels of access that your district will set, but really the bottom line is when you fill out that form on the prior slide, it will help me decide, okay, where is your district at? They may already have a DSA, which means I can reach out to them and say, hey, this person wants access. If they're in the process, that's perfect timing to add you while they're updating it. And maybe they don't have a DSA, and that's a perfect opportunity for me to nudge your superintendent a little bit to say, hey, your educators could use this valuable resource. Here's one that would love to get connected. Can you help us? Please know that regardless of the process, wherever you start that, 1, 2, or 3, when your account is added to the platform, you will get a specific email with all the info. And I am always a great resource for questions and troubleshooting if needed as well. On this next slide, I have that QR code repeated if you missed it. So please jump on that QR, give me some input, and I look forward to following up with you.
Great, thank you for that, Cody. All right. Now we're going to have Jen jump on in and tell us about some upcoming community events and trainings. So Jen, go ahead.
Thank you. Can you see that okay? Is that all right?
Yeah, it's in your presenter mode, but there you go. There you go. You're good.
Thank you. Sorry about that, everyone. Yep, again, I'm Jennifer Lucero. I'm the Outreach Navigator for the Colorado Department of Higher Ed. These are some events that we have coming up. You can see we are collaborating with U.S. Representative Pedersen's office. We will be holding FAFSA CASFA completion events in Lakewood on April 14th and in Salida on May 1st. We also, believe it or not, only have 2 more lunch and learns for this session. So the next one will be April 16th, followed by May 14th. We will be taking June, July off, and we will update you when the next one will be after that. But if you'd like to register for those 2, the QR code there will take you to that registration page. Also, we wanted to share the CAFA outreach request form. I know that we are a great resource, of course, and always willing to help out if we can. Sometimes, however, we cannot. We just don't have the manpower to get out to all events. So if you are looking for someone to attend your event and help with that, whether FAFSA, CASFA completion, I think they do presentations, all of the options are there on the on that page. If you do need to get in touch with us, as I said, we are happy to help with your events or provide trainings so that you can go on and carry on helping people fill out their FAFSAs, CASFAs. Please fill out the event request form. This QR code will take you there, and feel free always to reach out to me. Again, I'm Jennifer Lucero, or you can reach out to the outreach box.
Thanks so much, Jen. So I was just looking back in the chat for the question that Dallas had, and it looked like Shannon was able to jump in and answer that question. So I think we're good on that. Let me just look and make sure. Are there any other questions? Go ahead and put them in the chat, or we can or unmute yourself. Oh yeah, go ahead, Dallas. Okay. Oh, the outreach information. Yep, for sure. I think I put it in there. Oh, it's right above the events. But yes, I can definitely put it in again. There you go. Great. All right. Now, Jen, did you have other questions that people had during registration? Do we want to go through those?
Yeah, do
Okay.
you want me to share it, Sophie? No.
I guess I'll share. I made it pretty big, so hopefully that's helpful.
Right.
Except for I don't know how to make the ribbon go away. So one question we got during registration is, how do we support undocumented students now under the new administration? Students are scared to file paperwork for financial aid and fears of being deported. How should we advise them? So terrific question, and I am going to sort of pick it apart just a little bit because it is very complex. So support for undocumented students hasn't changed in Colorado. So one tool you can use is the CASFA data security tool, right? Pointing out that if a student completes a CASFA because they're an undocumented student, their data is secure and you can point them to that information. I think maybe this question also refers to students from mixed status families sort of indirectly, because today, as you all heard during the announcement, the support to students from mixed status families under the new administration has just changed here in Colorado. Since students are scared to file paperwork for federal financial aid because they're worried their parents will be deported, students can file a CASFA, forfeit any access to any federal student aid. So how should you advise them? We like to use what NCAN said, what I presented earlier, which is students and families should make a decision on their own based on what are their concerns. So they need to be given all of the information. Unfortunately, I feel like NCAN says it better than that. Informed decision. Encourage students and families to make an informed decision based on the information that we have. So a few other things I wanted to point out. I have here, I guess I'll just change to this, 7 ways to support non-citizen students and employees. So this is a link to an article from March 10th. And here are 7 ways to support undocumented students and employees. So this is a great resource. Thank you to Inside Higher Ed for pointing it out. Sorry if I'm scrolling too quick. Another one that's pretty valuable is this one from Immigrants Rising. So Immigrants Rising is an educational organization that supports immigrant students, and Immigrants Rising has been offering wellness groups. So I just looked at Undocu Women Support Group. However, there are a lot of different support groups. They're starting this month. So if you have a student who has concerns, this is another resource. There are a myriad of local resources, right? These 2 resources are not local. We have Colorado resources as well to support immigrant students. So, and Twyla just put those in the chat. Brilliant. Thank you, Twyla. So hopefully I answered that question. Cody, are you going to do the next one?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Sophie. So another question we had submitted for this one, and brevity is not a strength. So I put all the information in here. You're welcome to take a look, and there's a link at the end as well. But we're asking about the difference in SAI versus EFC. Of course, this was a fairly recent change with the better FAFSA. Estimated family contribution tended to mislead families thinking that that's the amount they have to pay. So now it's going to be somewhat relabeled, rebranded, but it still, at the end of the day, represents that number that IHEs use to determine the need-based federal options for students. still uses things like family size, tax filing status, poverty guidelines, and then income and assets for either students or students and contributors, depending on which formula you use. For the high school folks in the room, of course, our dependent students are going to use that formula A. And then generally speaking, the cost of attendance minus the SAI will tell the college or university what your financial need is, and that's where those financial aid packages can hopefully help bridge that gap for families. Some other minor differences noted there, or some key differences involving the scale. SAI certainly is on a
Sophie?
different scale than EFC.
Sorry, Sophie, your screen is still showing. Thank you.
Thank you, Twyla. Really sorry, everyone.
So yes, the SAI range, that minimum is now negative 1,500 where it used to be 0. So we'll see some changes in that regard with what SAI students get and what that means for their aid packages. Pell Grant eligibility can be better estimated just by AGI and poverty guidelines. And then there is a pretty big change for for families with students already in college. That big change from EFC to SAI in the fact that it does not divide the SAI amount based on those multiple students. I've been rambling a long time, I know, but if you want to do a deep dive, the link at the end there, we will put it in the chat. But that is a full-blown review of all things SAI eligibility and Pell eligibility. We always appreciate these questions as you register too, so encourage you all to submit them in the future. And at this point, Twyla, are we back to Q&A live?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if there are any more questions, we can jump into those, or that's all the content that we have to share today. But if there's any more questions, we can definitely address those. Okay. All right. Well, with that, just so you all know, we recorded today's webinar. We will post it on our website along with the slide decks and links. I tried to share as much as I could in the chat, but if you have any other, or if you want to look back on the slides, they will be posted hopefully about within the week or so. So thank you all so much for joining us today. And our next Lunch and Learn, as Jen said, is April 16th. All right. Thank you all. Take care.